Come here, I got something for you.
Hello everybody, happy Friday night. My name is Elise and welcome to my tea table. Let's get the tea party started. Every Friday night I come on to Reddit as well. I stream and talk about the ways that we can all put ourselves on our own path to the best life. Now, the best life, I don't know if it's necessarily something that we can all achieve. You know, there's a guarantee that we can live the best life, but it's more, hey Don, what's up? Yo, happy Friday night. We're talking about breath tonight. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good. I'm really excited for tonight, actually. So yeah, I like to come on Friday night and talk, do a deep dive. A lot of times I do literature reviews and Google Scholar and really try to understand on a more scientific level. You know, I am a food scientist. I do like to look at things from a perspective of a scientist and understand how we can put ourselves onto the path towards the best life. I talk about things such as fitness and sleep and meditation, mindfulness, brain health. Of course, everything is related to tea because I stream about tea. I'm a tea streamer. I'm a tea importer. I know a lot about tea, and I am very happy to answer your questions about tea. So if you have any tea-related questions, feel free to drop it right in chat, and I'll get those questions to you. We are listening to some wonderful electronic tunes from our good friend Sojourner out of here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I know this is backwards for you all, but oh no, they changed it, so it's not backwards. Oh no, it is backwards. Yeah, Sojourner. He's on Facebook. He's kind of old school on Facebook, but his music is great, and we are honored to listen to his jams. Bitcoin, you want to come listen to some jams? Bitcoin's down here ready to say hello already. Usually he's napping when I first start streaming, but he came right over here to say hello to everybody. most calming tea. Yeah, I get that a lot. A lot related to like anti-anxiety. Bitcoin, you want to sit up here? You gonna be a good boy? Sit down? No. Sit down? Yeah, just be a good boy. I know the pup is popular. The pup is popular. So the most calming tea, I'd say like the tea, of course it's the tea that you enjoy to drink, that you enjoy to brew and you enjoy to drink yourself. Careful, boy. Oh, you want to come on this side? Oh, what happened to your leg? Are you okay? Something happened to your leg? It's kind of limping, huh? I don't know if he was just doing that. I don't know if he was just doing that. I don't know. I squeezed all of his leg everywhere. Seems that he's not hurt. He's got such long legs. They get in the way. So yeah, the most calming tea is of course the tea that you enjoy, because like the real effects that you're gonna get from tea only come through like a daily lifestyle around not only drinking the tea, so like the actual chemical compounds that you're intaking when you have the tea, but also the process of brewing the tea, the mindfulness of brewing the tea. So, you know, you got to make sure that you're working with the tea that you really enjoy to drink, you really enjoy to brew, and we'll be doing this on a daily. Of course, we get our view blocked by the dog. The dog's always got to be, you got a dog butt. The dog is mindful of the tea. Yeah, he's very mindful of the tea. You know, I've had Bitcoin for, over 7 years now. And he's grown up. Since a puppy, he's grown up in a tea house or tea shop filled with many, many breakable things. And he's never broken a single thing. So I would call that mindfulness. I certainly would. Yeah, he's very mindful. And he'll play chase. He'll play and he'll rough and tough with guests that come over. But he's never broken a single piece of teaware, a single glass, a single cup. Yeah, he's a good boy. More humans have done more breaking in my tea room than he has. All right, so I'm just priming all the wares. Let me get the view here. I'm just priming all my wares, getting ready to brew some tea. But tea has caffeine in it, but it also has L-theanine. And L-theanine it changes the effect. Bitcoin, you're being a little bit of a nuisance today. His name is Bitcoin, yep. His name is Bitcoin. Huh, buddy? Yeah, he's a Bitcoin boy. He's a Bitcoin boy. Yeah, he's all up in the business today. I don't know what's going on with him. Yeah, we got him as an office dog in 2013, and this was shortly after we launched Bitcoin payments on the website. Yes, I know you heard your name. And we all decided just to call him Bitcoin. The whole team decided that's Bitcoin? Is that your name? Yeah, he knows his name. Look at him. He's like got his head all tilted towards me. Are you gonna give me a treat? So I'll tell you what, Bitcoin ate chocolate last night. He ate an entire solid Dove dark chocolate Easter bunny. I have no idea how he got access to it, but he got access to it. He tore all of the foil up and he ate the whole darn thing. And so, yeah, he might be feeling a little sick today. I think he did get rid of all of it. It all is no longer in his system. But I am going, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give him treats because, you know, I want to give his stomach some time, to get back to normal and heal. But yeah, he's a rambunctious little one. He really is. What's going on? I know, you're just desperate. You're desperate for the treats, huh? Just desperate. So yeah, today's topic is breath. Talking about breath, talking about breathing. But you know, I'm not just gonna be talking about like breath practices that we can all do. I really want to talk more about the history of breath and what the breath means culturally and the connection. Yeah, poor guy. He'll be okay. He's actually eaten a lot of chocolate before, so I feel like he's almost gained some sort of immunity, because it's like his body knows what to do. The first time he ever ate chocolate, that was a nightmare. That was an absolute nightmare. But now when it happens, his body just takes care of it for him. Yeah, we're not supposed to eat that. But then he still goes for it again. He finds it, he goes for it. It's like, where do you even find the chocolate? I don't even know where you found that thing. But I did an initial literature review on breath and different cultures' kind of definition of breath and different practice around breath, and found actually a lot of commonality of the concept of breath being equal to our soul, which is really interesting when you think about it from that perspective. I don't think that that's something I grew up being introduced to or taught, that the breath is equivalent to the soul. But when I moved to Hawaii, actually, I lived in Hawaii for 7 years right after my undergraduate degree, and I did grad school there. I'm going to drink some Dengere Peko here. This is a broken grade. They actually process this tea using a large pestle and mortar. Oh, Big when you're interested. This is coming from Sri Lanka, or Ceylon, might be the term for Sri Lankan tea that you're more familiar with. Although that's a term that we're no longer using because it's a term from the colonial age. I'll be using my strainer here. Oh, Dawn, I'm happy to hear that you got the tea. Yeah, I just, you didn't order any matcha, but I figured, yeah, you should get some. You should try it out. So we're all organic. If you like it, I have more of it, so no problem. No problem at all. Thank you for the upvotes. I appreciate that very much. So just using my Gaiwan here to the lid on the cup. So Gaiwan, the Gaiwan just means a cup with lid, a lidded cup, and you use the lid to hold back the leaf. So when you decant it, it's as easy as that. And this is the strainer I'm using to hold back any of the leaf particles that could make it their way into the liquor, the steeped tea that we'll be drinking. So Neller Wash here. All of our teas come exclusively from small family-owned farms around the world. My business, Tealet, is a software company that serves as a marketplace between independent tea growers and tea business buyers. So most of my business is actually supplying tea to other tea businesses. So, a lot of very popular tea retail brands, tea shops around the world, not just in the US, but around the world, are using our platform for their sourcing. And here we go, a beautiful cup of tea ready to go. Look at that color. It's so vibrant. It looks great from this camera here. A little bit of a delay. So this tea is coming from a place called Amba Tea Estate, which is located in the Ella area of Sri Lanka. Well, thank you for the downvotes. It's funny how that happens. All right. And if you want to experience the full experience, I do stream to Twitch. I stream 5 days a week to Twitch, several different topics, all centered around tea drinking, tea culture. So yeah, you can join us on Twitch anytime. And if you want to see the farms that we get the tea from, if you want to learn about the stories about where the tea comes from, you can go to that website, teaanditspeople.com. Or you don't have to. Just stay here, hang out in the stream, ask questions. I'm happy to hold space and to answer any questions that you may have about tea or about anything else. Especially if it has anything to do with getting ourselves on a path to living the best life that we can. And I'll just do one more infusion before moving on to the literature review and talking about breath. You know, I came up with this idea earlier today, when I was going on my run through the neighborhood, thinking about what should I talk about tonight. You know, I've talked about so many other really great topics, and you know, then I'm thinking, well, you know, I've talked about exercise before, and fitness. It's not necessarily just exercise, but fitness. And I was thinking, you know, this run that I go on, you know, it's, for me, it means so much more to me than just the exercise, the calories burned, or, you know, whatever, the health benefits that come from it. But it's more of like a meditative thing, and what makes it meditative for me, and maybe others can agree with this, is that, like, running, it forces you to think about your breath. Because as I developed a liking of running, I didn't always like running. Like many people, I dreaded it. Like, I don't want to go out and run. I don't want to do that. And the reason why was because I would experience pain or discomfort. And I realized fairly quickly, as I started to develop this practice, that a lot of that pain and discomfort can be avoided if you have a healthy breathing pattern. And for me, that's like a pattern, but then also that more air leaves my body than comes in. And so as long as I keep mindful of that, I don't get pains on my sides, I don't get cramps around my body, I don't feel out of breath, I feel like I have more energy. And so I love that, and I feel like that brings so much more benefit to my life than just the actual calories, or, you know, the cardiovascular benefits that come from you know, an extended period of elevated heart rate. You know, that focus on breath is really great for the mind. You don't believe me? Why don't you believe me, Superman? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know. Brooklyn wants to know too. Oh, great. You got your strainer. Cool. Yeah, these are really popular. Lots of people are ordering these strainers now. So then I had remembered, you know, as I started thinking about breath and like what are the different topics that I can look into around breath outside of just meditation. And I had remembered, you know, one of the most important things that I had learned while I lived in Hawaii was the concept of breath, the ha. You know, the ha that you hear in a lot of Hawaiian words. So aloha is the exchange of breath. Hawaii has breath in the word. And, you know, the word means so much more than just breath. It actually means your soul. It's like coming from the deepest part of your body, and the, not just the heartbeat of your breath, but the necessity of your life. So I did just a little quick search to pull up some articles that I'll be looking at today, and found that there are several indigenous cultures throughout the world, not just in the Pacific, you know, the Pacific Ocean like Hawaii, but also in Alaska, as well as in Africa. And I'm sure, you know, as we continue to search more, we'll probably see more of that commonality throughout other cultures in the world. So there's got to be something important to it. And I figured, you know, hanging out in the clouds would be a good representation, talking about the power of our breath being our soul. Superman, you still didn't let me know why you don't believe me. I'm curious. I mean, I guess that you meant to say baloney. Maybe it's another word, a different language. Let me know, Superman. Alright, so I'm gonna jump right into it. Let's get it. Oh, you know what I should do? I can't believe I didn't fix that before. Alright, so I found this article from the Journal of Indigenous Social Development, published in 2014. That's, around about the same time that I was introduced to one of the writers of this article, Pono Shim. Pono Shim here with the Oahu Economic Development Board was a mentor of mine while I lived in Hawaii, and he taught me a lot of really important things about business, about relationships, about networks, about ethics and responsibility. Grateful for his education and his mentorship. And he's the one that several different times taught me about the true meaning of the word aloha. And so, this article kind of goes into it a little bit. So, in this article, we contend that an ancient contemplative practice called mindfulness, often associated with, I'm not in Oahu now. I live in Las Vegas now. I'm in the 9th island. I moved away from Oahu. I was a student at UNLV, and then I started this business, this tea importing business, while I was in Hawaii, because I worked with the University of Hawaii College of Ag to work with tea farmers, mostly on the Big Island, but some on Maui, and actually now there are some tea growers on Oahu as well. I had even started a little tea garden in Po'oa Valley, just outside of downtown Honolulu. But when I started the business, I was traveling a lot, and it just didn't really make sense for the business to be located on Oahu any longer. So relocated to the 9th island. So now I'm in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so this practice called mindfulness, often associated with the Buddhist tradition, shares much resonance with the indigenous wisdom of aloha, the lifestyle and livelihood of Native Hawaiians. In fact, we propose that mindfulness is one tool and one form of mental energy that facilitates the discovery, recovery, and uncovery of the aloha response, leading to the experiential awareness and embodiment of aloha. We also discuss how mindfulness in Hawaii can nurture individual and collective consciousness to respond with aloha, thereby recovering the Native Hawaiian spirit on the islands as they interact with clients and the community. Social work practitioners in Hawaii can play a key pivotal role in modeling aloha and encouraging others to engage with aloha. And it even extending to what we're doing here, us reading this article and sharing this knowledge with each other is a part of this practice of mindfulness and aloha. So let's move on. We've already read this part. I won't go into the details of this specific project, which is where this is going up, but lower down in the article, Pono has his definition of aloha here. Mindfulness is essentially the awareness that arises by paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmental. Awareness of the present moment is the first thing, and the second is a non-judgmental acceptance of this awareness. Others that have also included metacognitive awareness and a decentering ability to step back and see from a wider perspective. And what does this have to do with breath, right? We'll see. Collectively, this results in a dispassionate mindset that, when sufficiently sustained, enables the individual to see things clearly and objectively as they are, without the usual mental and ego chatter. Commentaries, thoughts about the past and future, self-evaluation, judgments that often clouds perception and perspectives. Individuals are able to perceive and experience thoughts, feelings, events without clinging to or rejecting them, enabling greater equanimity. Most importantly, these experiences of thought, emotions, and sensations are experienced and recognized for what they are, as passing phenomena rather than as something concrete of self. In other words, instead of being identified with one's thoughts and feelings, I'm a sad person, one is able to stand back and observe these thoughts and feelings dispassionately, the experience of observing happiness coming and going. Mindfulness could also be considered a form of energy, the energy that allows us to look deeply at our body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, and see clearly what our real needs are, so we cannot drown in the sea of suffering. Why and how mindfulness for aloha? In mindfulness, one is instructed to attune and attend to an object, breath, sound. And so that's kind of like that same thing when I'm running. Not only is my breath and, the amount of oxygen that's getting to my muscles and getting into like my blood system important, and the breathing is playing a role in that, but that mindfulness in my breath is also playing a role in this other thing that's being talked about here, about being able to be outside yourself and be above your emotions, basically. As mindfulness energy becomes steady, like a laser that has the concentrated beam of photons, it shines with intense clarity onto the phenomena, revealing the true nature of reality. Without this deep stillness of insight, the aloha response is revealed. Nana Viri encouraged getting into silence in order to connect, as silence allows you to tap the source of your being, the still, all-knowing center. The soul, I guess. In Native Hawaiian traditions and spirituality, there are practices that resonate with mindfulness and emphasizing the importance of breath, silence, and deep listening. Support for mindfulness practices can be found in the word aloha, presence in the breath. That's what it means, presence in the breath. And even in the word Hawaii. In fact, the Hawaiian word for breath is an essential part of the word Hawaii. So ha means breath or breath of life. Wai means water, but it's also the root word for wealth, and E means supreme. Ha, breath exercises are commonly emphasized as a way to tap one's energy source and to connect deeply to one's essential nature and to others. There are, however, several variations of ha, breath, described exercises, each with a specific purpose. Khan described 3 traditional Hawaiian breath forms. Nohopu is a passive meditative contemplation that opens the pathway to ho'ike, enlightenment. A'alaha is an active meditative contemplation, uses repetitive o'ono chants to manifest desirable personal desires and enhance health through revitalizing and toning the internal organs. In ho'omana, storing breath work is the third form that builds necessary mana, or energy, and personal power to overcome life's challenges. Ha exercises, again, ha means breath, are marked by deep inhalation through the nose until one's lungs are full, followed by exhaling through the mouth, whispering the word ha until one has fully exhaled. There are a variety of techniques described for conducting ha exercises, but they are usually conducted to calm the mind and to prepare oneself for another activity, such as chanting or meditation. The intention of these breathing exercises is to facilitate relaxation and stillness of mind, or to enhance health and well-being. This requires focused attention on the breath and with an open, receptive, and patient attitude. One of the core components of mindfulness involves cultivating right intentions, including openness, acceptance, non-judgment, kindness, and compassion. One is instructed to engage whatever arises in oneself, be it thoughts, emotions, sensations, even disturbing ones, with these virtues. Being virtuous, righteous, is also consistent with what Native Hawaiians refer to as pono. To be pono is not to take from, but to be resource for others, and aligns with the aloha response. Similarities to mindfulness can be found a special form of Hawaiian shamanic meditation called nalu. In this context, nalu means to form waves. I think nalu also means dolphin. And the essence of the technique is a gentle, effortless resting of attention and awareness, which is exactly the instructions for the mindfulness practice. Consistent with mindfulness, simple forms of nalu also include closing one's eyes and paying attention to one's breathing, or concentrating on the repetition of a word or phrase, or holding one's focus on an object or an image. Other forms of nalu may include focusing on sight, sound, touch, and multisensory awareness. As such, one can see much resonance between Native Hawaiian breathing and meditative practices and mindfulness. Native Hawaiian also have many contemplative spiritual practices that highlight the theme of interconnections and interbeing, which are salient in various mindfulness practices. For example, deep listening, contemplative art and music, forms of martial arts. The Native Hawaiian practice of storytelling, for example, is to connect through sharing emotional information, hopes, desires, and intention. As Brown stated, stories reveal that people care about most. Stories reveal how people perceive the world. Stories point to the way to insights. Maybe stories are just data with a soul. Wow. That's incredible. I love that. Maybe stories are just data with a soul. So this gets me thinking, because I've been thinking a lot about storytelling and story time. I've been spending some time on TikTok, trying to figure out that channel and how we might be able to help farmers and craftspeople to utilize that platform for connecting with a wider audience. And I have seen story time being a popular trend, a popular meme of sorts on TikTok. And so if you use this statement that stories are just data with the soul, or stories reveal what people care about most, stories reveal how people perceive the world, it's pretty sad, because a lot of the stories that are trending on that platform are stories of infidelity, stories of distrust. So I feel even more compelled now that I need to put the work in of bringing stories of resilience, stories of confidence, and of empowerment onto that platform. Sure, Kiwi. You are welcome to ask the question. You're welcome to ask the question. I know I'm reading these articles. If you have a tea-related question or any kind of question, I'd be happy to your question. That's an interesting question. So Kiwi asked, when I look at the stars, sometimes they twinkle. What the hell are they doing up there? I am not I'm not a star expert, not by far, but I do remember in school when we learned about light. I forget what course I was in, but this was in college, so it was a bit more of an advanced, technical kind of viewpoint. When talked about stars, it was as if the stars really only have one or two light points that light goes out of. And so when and stars are also on axis, they are also spinning. So I think that's why they twinkle, because there's actually the light. It's not like one 360 radiating light. What do you believe it is? I want to hear your imagination. I want to hear your imagination. All right, so Dawn tells us, as the light from a star races through our atmosphere, it bounces and bumps through different layers, bending the light before you see it. Since the hot and cold layers of air keep moving, the bending of the light changes too, which causes the star's appearance to wobble or twinkle. That sounds more accurate and less scientific for you. So I think you should have liked that one. But Kiwi, I'm interested in hearing your I'm interested in hearing your imagination about it. But stargazing, I think, is related to this topic of mindfulness. They're beacons. Imagine, what kind of beacons? Beacons from the heavens. But I think even the practice of stargazing or any kind of gazing is really good at helping with getting you into this meditative state of mindfulness, just like with these breath exercises. And storytelling as well. In mindful storytelling, one engages both heart and mind to foster connections. The procedure of sitting in a circle in a group council practice is also a form of contemplative practice, as it is the hula or ha'a, which facilitates deeply rich sensory experience via body movements. So even hula is a form of mindfulness. So you think, the twinkling stars are all sorts of beacons for distress or invitations. I do not have wisdom, but I do have time, and I'm happy to give it to you. I appreciate you too, Kiwi. Thank you so much for your fun question and for your encouragement of imagination. We need that sometimes. We need that all the time, actually. I need to be reminded of that all the time. Not to be so serious all the time. But it's hard, because then there's all this pressure that you do need to be serious. You know, we gotta make money. We gotta be fit for this modern world. There's no time for there's no time for imagination. But there always is. Okay, so this is the concept of breath for Hawaii. Let's look at a different culture. So this is an article in regards to Islam. Let's see what this has to say. From breath to soul, the Quranic word ruh, or its misinterpretation. So ruh, I believe, means breath. So let's see what is interpreted from Islam about breath. A certain theologian was asked in my presence about the meanings of the word nafs and ruh, to which he gave the answer nafas, breath, and ruh, wind, respectively. Based on what you say, the theologian's interlocutor commented, every time a person breathes, his soul exits his body, and every time he breaks wind, his spirit does the same. So this is very similar. Every time a person breathes, his soul nafs. So breath and soul mean the same thing. To breathe the word is tanafasa, and soul is nafs. Completely different part of the world, completely different culture, and very similar interpretations of of what our breath means. Like when breath exits our body, what is happening? Our soul is leaving. Like the deepest part of us is leaving our body. Yes, Bitcoin. Be grateful. Don, you're funny. Don said, my spirit left me twice then. Did you fart twice? I hope they were good, fulfilling farts. Praise be to the powers that be. for that grace and blessing. This anecdote told by the prominent author Abu Hayyan al-Tawhidi is probably meant to illustrate the absurdity of this mutakalim's claims, but like many others, it also points to an underlying controversy. In this case, the controversy revolves around the term Ru and Nafs, particularly whether they refer to the perceived entity that supposedly animates the human body, the soul. The understanding of Ruh and Nafs as soul has long been established in Islamic thought and is generally believed to stem from, or at least to be consistent with, the Quran. Yet the anecdote shows also that even as late as the 4th to 10th century, these assumptions were questioned by some, and for the matter by a makalamim, not an amak, fool, or an otherwise unserious contender. In this essay, I wish to explore part of this controversy by studying the word Ruh in the Quran and related texts, not only with the aim of understanding its meanings, but also of understanding the intellectual context in which it has been debated. A closer look at the Quran reveals that it does not use the words Ruh or Nafs interchangeably to suggest any synonym, and that indeed Ruh never occurs in the Quran with the meaning of soul, as Duncan MacDonald points out. More importantly, a diachronic study of commentaries on the word reveals a trend of growing Anthropocentrism in Islamic thought that is worth exploring. I am interested in this word. I've never seen this word before. Is the belief that human beings are the most important entity in the universe. Anthropocentrism. Yeah, so I guess it's like, yeah, that makes sense. I've never heard of that as a concept, but it's a serious thing. I mean, I think that's what we're dealing with in our current challenges involving climate change and I guess like climate change would be the biggest issue involving this. We're making decisions with humanity as a priority, not understanding it's a part of a bigger thing. Several modern scholars have noted that the body and soul conception of the human being emerged somewhat late in Islamic thought, around the 2nd century of Islam. Prior to this, as Ismail Faruqi explains, Muslims were not yet exposed to the array of ideas that both triggered and shaped discourses about human nature and related philosophical matters. This is not to suggest that to pre-Islamic Arabics and early Muslims, the human being was no more than the sum of her physical self. But earlier conceptions of the non-physical dimension of the human being in the Arabian context were rather unsophisticated. When Muslims started pondering the incorporeal nature of humans during Islam's formative centuries, the body and soul dualism was not the only model they adopted. Early Ash'aris and many Mutazilis conceived of the human being primarily in terms of atoms and accidents. Humans, similar to other created beings, were believed to consist of a collection of atoms that served as seats for a multitude of accidents. All right, so this is, okay, so notwithstanding this, many Muslims still accepted the notion of a soul Oh, that's all they're gonna give us? Well, you know what? We got what we needed from this. I mean, this was like the main little excerpt that I wanted to look at here in our conversation. Just trying to find the parallels of breath and what it means in various ideologies and cultures around the world. There's one more we can look at. This is an article titled The Commonwealth of Breath by David Abram. And this is from a book called Atmospheres of Breathing. So this is a really great book all about breathing. But this particular article is, I thought was interesting because it is related to this, kind of idea of, yes, please ask questions. Please ask questions. And your questions can be tea related or they can be related to what we're talking about. And I can't guarantee that I can answer it. If it's about tea, guarantee it I can answer it. But all types of questions are welcomed. All types of questions. Please bring the questions. What is mindfulness? Great question. So I just finished reading an article about Hawaiian culture that they specifically identify mindfulness as a practice. Not only is it like an adjective, which is usually, an adjective. Mindfulness is it's a noun. To be mindful is an adjective, but mindfulness is this thing that you can practice. For Hawaiian culture, mindfulness is a whole ideology. It's a whole way of life. And so it's basically just being super attuned with what's going on around you at all times. So the specific words that were used here, to lifestyle and livelihood. I want to get the exact words. It is the awareness that arises by paying attention, in particular on purpose, in the presence of moment and non-judgmental. Super tuned, yeah, super tuned. So there's so many ways that this could be described, and that's what I'm talking about today, is that several different cultures, potentially all cultures in the world, especially all indigenous cultures in the world, have some type of connection to this idea of mindfulness. That mindfulness is just to be present with no judgments on anything, no ideas going on in your head, no motivations for anything to happen or to control something to happen. You're just present and you're just paying attention to every detail around you. And so mindfulness is something we talk about in the tea world a lot. And people advocate that the act of brewing and drinking tea encourages mindfulness. And what I'm talking about today is that not only tea, but even the act of breathing and our breath can be a source of this mindfulness. And really what instigated me to even bring this topic up today was I was on a run earlier today, and I was thinking, what is it about running that I really love? Outside of knowing it's good for my heart and good for my health, what is it that I'm getting out of this? Because I get something out of it and I feel great, and I feel bad when I don't do it. And when I was running today, I'm doing my breathing, which is that's the only thing I have to think about is my breath when I'm running. Maybe, I gotta watch out for obstacles on the road and cars or whatever, but throughout the entire activity, the only thing that I'm doing is thinking about my breath. And I have a rhythm on my breath. I'll share my rhythm right now. So it's and the main thing that I'm always mindful of is that more of my breath is leaving my body than coming in, even though I need the breath to come in, right? When you think about holding your breath, the first thing that you want to do is hey, Queen Goddess, welcome to the stream. Thanks for saying hello. Welcome. So it's just being aware of what's happening, sounds and feelings inside of you. Yes, without judgment. Yeah, puppy, he's asleep. Bitcoin boy is asleep. He's taking a nap. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and with no judgments. So like, if you're sitting someplace, like sitting on a park bench somewhere, and you are looking at everybody around you and like try to think about their stories and who they are as people, and thinking about that tree over there and that, like, that's probably not mindfulness, because there's judgment. There's something in your mind that is making judgments and assumptions about what's going on around you versus just being present. And that's another topic I had talked about when I first started this Best Life Friday series, was holding space. Holding space is a newer term that's being used a lot in like the psychology fields of, if you have a friend that just needs someone to talk to, you hold space for them. Like, you do nothing. Like, it's like easy. It's like literally doing nothing. You just sit there and hold space for them and let them talk. Let them feel comfortable. And the only way that they're going to feel that way is if you're not judging them. And they can feel, like, we can feel when someone is thinking about us or making some assumptions about us or some judgment on us. And when that happens, we are far less likely to be vulnerable. We are far less likely to just be comfortable and to be authentic and to share ourselves with who we're with. So to be effective at holding space, like, the mindfulness piece is really important. But I think the one part of mindfulness that people often overlook is the non-judgmental part of it. And it's hard. It's hard to not be judgmental, because we have our own insecurities. We have our own, whatever you want to call it. People call it baggage, or people call it whatever, your ideas, your insecurities, your fears. And it's really hard to just shut those off for a second. It's like, even the most mindful people in the world, the most skilled monks that have meditated for hours a day, you meet them and you're like, wow, that person's so mindful. They probably have zero capacity to like make a judgment on somebody or to, be a corrupt human being. But no, they have to work on it just as much as we have to work on it. So Queen Goddess on Twitch says, no one is truly different. We are truly all the same. It's true. I mean, that's definitely a perspective that we can take on it. And that's actually the perspective we must take if we are going to effectively achieve mindfulness. We have to accept that we are different and we are the same all at the same time. We are autonomous, but then interconnected all at the same time. That's such like a conflict, right? Like, autonomous and interconnected. Those are interdependent and autonomous. The two different opposite words, yet, in order for us to truly achieve mindfulness, oh, Bitcoin, where are you going, boy? You gonna lay down right there? Yeah. But yeah, thank you for that question. It's a great question. Super valid. Super valid. Who's that? Who's that? What? By the way, y'all, I am streaming to Twitch, and I stream 5 days a week. I talk on several topics very similar to how I'm speaking tonight. So if you're looking for like motivation and we also talk about like entrepreneurship, and we talk about, and we have fun too. It's not all serious, a serious talk, but we definitely have a lot of fun. Please consider following our channel, hang out there. The experience is much more rich and abundant from Twitch, and we have a cool community there. You can go hang out with our friends on Twitch. Yeah, mindfulness is a big topic. It's important, and I'd like to do whatever I can to help to help you achieve your best path towards mindfulness, because it'll bring so much benefit to your life as far as your relationships and your happiness and your confidence and just your, right? Because it's helping you understand your own insecurities and understand your own anxieties, so then they no longer control you, right? Because that's what ends up happening. Yeah, I am on YouTube. Yep. You'll go find us on YouTube. Just search T-Let. I'm sure you'll find us if you search T-Let T on YouTube. I stream everywhere. We don't have a whole bunch of viewers on YouTube, but the reason why I stream to YouTube is because I like the subtitle auto generator, and then also the hosting as well. So, you know, all of the videos, our past videos are all hosted on YouTube. Twitch, you know, you have to pay an additional fee to get Twitch to hold your video for longer than 2 weeks. So, Big Wing, what is going on with your leg? Let me see. I'm gonna put him on the ground and have him walk. I think he might have like a cramp or something. We went for a long walk the other day. Let me just squeeze his feet and see if there's something going on with him. Squeeze all the muscles in his leg. You know David Abram? I never knew David Abram. I just found this article and I thought, you know, it's related to what we're talking about today. Oh, he's such a baby. He's such a baby. I think he was just looking for this. He was just looking for the attention to get all the cuddles. Well, thank you for that recommendation. I'm going to look it up. The Spell of the Sensuous is an amazing book. What is it about, Dawn? If you want to provide a short synopsis for us, please. Bitcoin, go get the ball. Go get your baby. Let's play. I want to see how you play. An accomplished sleight of hand magician, as well as a gifted philosopher, David Abram has lived and traded magic with indigenous sorcerers on several continents. What? That is so cool. I had no idea. I just found this article, or it's like an excerpt from a larger book about breathing that I thought, you know, would have been good for us to read on this topic. But hey, thanks for letting us know how great David Abram is. Cool. All right, so let's read it. Let's get into it. Gusting the tops of small waves, a wind-carrying salt spray collides with another thick with tree pollen. Edges of both merge with a breeze, plucking lichen spores from the surface of rocks as it rides up the hill where I sit, high above the coast, gazing at a far-off tanker filled with tar sands crude. Behind me, another breeze lingers at the forest edge, spiced with truck exhaust and the reek from 2 oyster shells broken open by a raven. I breathe in, and all those unseen currents converge, pollen and petrol fumes flooding up through my nostrils, tweaking dendrites and spreading twangs of sensation along my scalp. And then down into my chest, charging my blood and feeding the vigor of my limbs, I stretch, shoulder muscles cracking, and exhale. The feelings sparked by the sight of that tanker lend their tremor to the breath pouring out through my lips. Wondering and worry texture the small vortices in front of me and the eddying flows that rush past me, informing the interference patterns between my exhalations and those of the tall cedars and the mist rising from the Salished Sea. That's a great introduction to this story. It's great. Don says he explores the character of perception and excavates the sensual foundations of language, which, even at its most abstract, echoes the calls and cries of the earth. Incredible. So yeah, David must do, David Abrams, the writer of the story that I'm currently reading, you know, is doing a lot of work around this topic, which is great. You know, I love that. When I traveled, like my first experience of traveling, I was in the Peace Corps. I lived in a small mud village in Niger, West Africa, and it was my first time to be exposed into another culture. It was, they prayed 5 times a day. It was a Muslim community, but they did practice animism. I came to find out, which was a unique experience, because it's so far different than any organized religion that I've been exposed to before. And where I found power and where I found knowledge and wisdom was in finding the parallels between what I knew from my perspective growing up and like this new perspective. And so now as I travel with the work that I do, being a tea importer and having the honor and privilege of traveling to work with farmers and to import teas and learn about tea, I continue that same practice. And there are parallels all over the place in regards to everything. And so that's what we're looking at today. I'm specifically looking at the parallels around the concept of breath and what that means. So breath is your soul, as we have already seen from Hawaiian culture and from Islam. Now in this book, this will be a different angle as this story that we're currently reading. But also there are Inuit culture and practice around breath and soul development, soul empowerment, as well as several cultures in Africa. So, it must mean something if different humans that have had far different experiences all end up practicing the same thing. For me, like, that means that's legit. Like, I'm gonna listen to that. I'm gonna listen to that wisdom and hold on to that wisdom for myself. And share that wisdom as well, as what I'm trying to do right now. I'm not an expert in this topic at all. I'm a food scientist. I know, I've spent the past decade plus, like, deep diving, researching tea, the Camellia sinensis plant, and the whole lifestyle and culture around it. But it's really great. I'm so grateful for it, because prior to tea, when I was just a food scientist, the extent of my, there was no, civics. There was no conversation around civility around my work and what I studied. There was no conversation around spirituality in my work. It was very scientific. It was very black or white. And since I've started to study tea, it has opened up, my field of study to include these types of concepts, which are, very, very spiritual in its nature. So, or sensuous, as David Abram has put it. I like that. What is climate change if not a consequence of failing to respect or even to notice the elemental medium in which we're immersed? Is not global warming or global weirding a simple consequence of taking the air for granted? And that goes back to this concept of anthropocentric thinking, which the last article, the scholar of Islam was making comments that there's a debate even within, the scholars of Islam seeing some of these concepts as like human-centric. It is easy, you might say, to overlook something that's invisible. We don't commonly notice our breathing, although it enables all that we do notice. And we don't commonly see the air, since it's that through which we see everything else. The atmosphere is ungraspable, unmappable, and hopelessly unpredictable. An ever-shifting flux we're generally unable to lay eyes on. The unseen quality of the air is what prompted so many traditional peoples to pay surpassing respect to this medium, acknowledging the breath and the gusting wind as aspects of an essentially sacred power, a ubiquitous and meaning-filled plenum in which they found themselves immersed. Yet, in the modern era, it is that same invisibility that leads us to take the air for granted. Since we can't see it, perhaps there's Nothing of consequence there. We have ceased speaking to the unseen spirits that gathered near rivers or lingered near certain herbs. We have stopped feeling for the invisible qualities that reside in particular places. We have quit tasting the breeze, stopped noticing the steady gift of our breath, and generally forgotten the air. Today, we rarely acknowledge the atmosphere as it swirls between two persons. Well, we kind of are today because of the pandemic. And that's funny. All right. We don't speak of the air between our body and a nearby tree, but rather the empty space between us. It's empty, just as absence of stuff without feeling or meaning, a void. And hence, a perfect place to throw whatever we hope to avoid. The perfect dump site for the unwanted byproducts of our industries, for the nauseous brew of chemicals exhaled from the stacks of our factories and power plants and refineries, and the stinging exhaust belching forth from our fossil-fueled vehicles, spewing from automobiles and airplanes, cruise ships and tugboats, and giant tankers lugging thick tar sand oils to be processed in foreign ports. Even the most opaque, acrid smoke billowing out of the pipes will dissipate and disperse, always and ultimately dissolving into the invisible. It's gone, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, it is. This is very poetic. I wasn't expecting it when I found this excerpt. I was like, oh, this excerpt's about, taking air for granted. I was like, oh, this will be a great thing to include with this conversation. But it is very poetic. It's very beautiful, actually. I'm gonna bookmark this one. This is definitely a keeper. Actually, I'll give you all the link. Mind or consciousness or awareness. So here we go. We're back to that word mindfulness again. How is it so strange how any of these academic articles about breath or air or wind all relate back to mindfulness? Okay, anyway. It's hopelessly amorphous and ephemeral phenomenon, one that's mighty tough to pin down. Gobs of scientific papers and books have been published in recent years trying to account for the emergence of awareness or to explain how consciousness is constituted within the brain. Many of those works are dramatically at odds with one another, for there exists no clear agreement as to just what this enigma that we call consciousness actually is. Part of the difficulty stems from the intrasignificance of old notions, in particular our age-old assumption that mind is a uniquely human property, an utterly intangible substance that resides somewhere inside each of us. A problematic assumption, given the blithe obliviousness with which we shove other species over the brink of extinction in our ready capacity to wreak havoc upon ecosystems utterly essential to our own flourishing. It might be that a bit of humility is in order. We may not be quite as conscious as we've thought. At this broken moment in the human story, when the continued survival not only of our kind, but of much of our world is in question, it may be that a fresh conception or image of mind is in order, an image that has sort of wisdom built right into it. Curiously, our experience of awareness, this amorphous and ephemeral power, has much in common with our felt experience of Earth's atmosphere. Ooh, okay, here we go. This is the connection. This is going to explain the connection. Consider the air, the light-filled and fluid element in which you've now immersed, with its agitations and its calms, its storms and its substances. Consider the unseen currents drifting between the soils and the scudding clouds and circulating among us whenever we find ourselves pouring in through the door and eddying along the walls, streaming in at your nostrils and circulating within you as well. Like the quality of awareness, the fluid air constantly informs us, and yet it's exceedingly difficult to catch sight of it. We glimpse the air only indirectly, as it bends the branches of a birch tree or slants the rain, or steals a page from our fingers and sends it flapping down the street. We drink the air ceaselessly, alchemizing it within our flesh and replenishing it with every out-breath, yet seem unable to fully bring it to our attention. Itself invisible, the atmosphere is that through which we see everything else, much as consciousness, which we cannot see or grasp, is that through which we encounter all other phenomena. We are unable to step apart from consciousness in order to examine it objectively, for wherever we step, it is already there. Isn't that crazy? Mind, in this sense, is very much like a medium in which we're continually situated or corporeally situated, and from which we're simply unable to extricate ourselves without ceasing to exist. Everything we know or sense of ourselves is conditioned by this atmosphere. We are intimately acquainted with its character, endlessly transformed by its influence upon us, and yet we're unable to characterize this medium from outside. We are composed of this curious element, permeated by it, and hence can take no real distance from it. To acknowledge this affinity between air and awareness is to allow this curious possibility that the awareness that stirs within each of us is continuous with the wider awareness that moves around us. Twisted, the grasses, and lofting, the crows. Each organism partakes of this awareness from its own unique angle or situation within it, imbibing it through our nostrils or through the stomata in our leaves, altering its chemistry and quality within us before we breathe it back into the surrounding world. Is consciousness really the special possession of our species? Or is it rather a property of the breathing biosphere, a quality in which we, along with the woodpeckers and the spreading weeds, all participate? Yeah, we all respire. Perhaps the apparent interiority we ascribe to the mind has less to do with a separate consciousness located somewhere inside me, and another entirely separate and distinct consciousness that sits inside you, and more to do with the intuition that we are both situated within, a recognition that we are carnally immersed in an awareness that is not, properly speaking, ours, but rather the Earth's. Wow. Yeah, Don, like there's no other way to describe this other than just amazing. Amazing. I'm going to get back to the article. I'm going to take a little break, drink some tea, and yeah, kind of like unpack a lot of what was just read there. I mean, that was incredible. I never heard, especially from such a poetic voice, but I've never heard that perspective, and it's almost life-changing. I'm feeling that right now. That the wisdom of the idea of that, like, even like, let's go back to the Hawaiian article that I started out with. The idea that your breath, what comes out is yours. It comes from you, like I am making that noise, ha. But there's like this intrinsic interconnectedness that when it leaves, it comes into me and leaves me. And even though it comes from within me, and that ha is my soul. And, I think a lot of modern ideologies have this kind of egocentric perspective that our soul is ours. And it's within us. And these more indigenous viewpoints of what your soul is in relation to being your breath, which is something that comes in and out of you constantly, implies an interconnectedness and a lack of ownership, a lack of ego with our souls. That's incredible. How does it make you all feel? Feel free to put it in the comments. So you can just put your comments and your feelings, or you can ask some questions. Feel free to bring it back to tea too. You want to ask me what my favorite tea is? That's fine. I don't mind answering that question. But also, if you're just absorbing this, please enjoy it. And if this is putting you to sleep, you're welcome. Right, Dawn? Chills is the only word to use. It's incredible. I love this article. I'm really loving this. It's great. So yeah, I believe he's going to start getting into, he's going to start getting into some more indigenous definitions of the word breath and soul. And this time coming from a different part of the world. Connecting all the dots. Connecting all the dots. Among the Inuit and Yupik peoples inhabiting the circumpolar Arctic, the enigma is called Sila. There are variants in local dialects, Hila, Hila, Shila, Shla, Tla, all voice the same mystery, most commonly called Sila, the wind mind of the world, source of all breath. Sila is the elemental wonder of the air and of the winds that stir and sometimes surge within it, of the storm and mist of every other kind of weather, but also awareness, consciousness. Okay? Come on, like parallels, I'm talking about parallels, like, you gotta believe them when you see them. Silar Kwak, Silar Jock, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm guessing it's that. That which has no creator, constant flux and change, mind at large. Sila Tunik, wisdom, both from Sila, the intelligence of the air, the mind of the cycling seasons and the weather, the great indweller in the air. Sila is the source of all breath, of all life, of all awareness, wind, mind. In the early 1920s, an old Inuit and Gakak, or shaman, spoke in conversation with the Danish explorer Knud Rasmussen. His words were translated by Rasmussen into Danish and then others into English. And here's what he spoke of. A power that we call Sila, that cannot be explained in simple words. A great spirit sustaining the world and the weather and all life on earth. A spirit so mighty that its speech to humankind is not through common words, but through storms and snow and rainfall and the fury of the sea. All the forces of nature that men fear, but has also another meaning of utterance. Through sunlight and calm seas and through small children innocently at play, understanding nothing. Children hear a soft and gentle voice, almost like that of a woman. It comes to them in a mysterious way, but so gently that they are not afraid. They only hear that some danger threatens. When times are good, Sila has nothing to say to humankind, but withdraws into its endless nothingness, where it remains as long as people do not abuse life and act with respect towards the animals that are their food. No one has ever seen Sila. Its place is a mystery at once intimately among us and unspeakably far away. All right, more chills. Rasmussen's written records and many more recent ethnographies make evident that the importance for the Inuit, or another more intimate power, the breath soul, or Inua, that indwells each living being, providing life and awareness to humans, animals, and plants. A person's breath soul, however, is simply her part of the wider mind of the wind, since Sila, the sensibility in the air, subsumes all individual Inua, or breath souls, within itself. So Inua, that's their word for. So Sila is the breath, the wind, and the Inua is our own interaction, I guess, with it. And so, yeah, in all other languages, there was a differentiation between the word breath and the word for wind, but then there's interconnectivity between those things as well. Sila is the life-giving element which enfolds all of the world and invests all living organisms. Sila is the word for air. Without air, there is no life. Air is in all people and all creators. Every individual is said to have a part of his soul, the life force, the life-giving spirit, which is part of the whole animating force of Silap Inua, the inner dweller in the wind. This is, of course, something which never dies, and air, the life-giving force, go on indefinitely, and so then does the soul of man. When the air passes out of the body at the moment of physical death, it is simply the passing of the soul back to its original matrix. This old circumpolar understanding neatly unties the modern philosophical knot conventionally known as the mind-body problem, the puzzle of how a purely intermaterial mind or consciousness interacts with or is generally by a thoroughly material body. To the Inuit, consciousness may be invisible and ineffable, but it is hardly immaterial. It is rather the sentience of the unknown by nonetheless palpable elements in which we participate with the whole of our breathing bodies. The sun-infused air is our common medium, a broad intelligence that we share with the other animals and the plants and the forested mountains, yet each of us engages with it in the particularities of our own flesh. And since our body is different from mine in many ways, so your experience of awareness. Your interface with the common medium is necessarily richly different from mine. The still more contrasting experience of a praying mantis or a pileated woodpecker or of a field of wild lupines, for that matter, are as curiously different from our experience as their bodies are different from ours. Each being's awareness is unique, to be sure, yet this is not because an autonomous mind is held inside its particular body or brain. Rather, each engages with the common awareness of its own extraordinary angle through its particular senses according to the capacities of its flesh. Wow, that's incredible. That is incredible. Yeah, I love it. I was not, Dawn, when I found that excerpt, I was not prepared for how great it was going to be. I was actually not prepared with how great this whole deep dive into breath would be. I just thought, for me, it's meditative, and I've, heard from some cultures that it breath is something important, but man, this is like bringing so much understanding, even from my own experience and my own perspective. I'm so grateful. I went into this stream with kind of an unfortunate occurrence that happened between a friend around a misunderstanding, around a controversial topic where there was misunderstanding and our viewpoints on it. And yeah, so I started this stream feeling pretty bad about that. Feeling pretty bad. Not so much that I was misunderstood, because that's to be expected. It should always be, because we're coming from these different perspectives. We're all having our own unique interaction with reality, with this, the Sila. I love that, Sila. I'm going to look more into that term, Sila. That's how it's pronounced. That's in the Inuit culture. That's what we were just reading about. The Sila is like the soul energy of existence around us that powers our own soul. And then our own soul powers that as well too. So yeah, our own unique interaction with it, our own breath is all gonna have a different outcome. And so misunderstanding is inevitable. It's expected. But yeah, it's yeah, I was feeling down, and I'm still feeling a little down about that, but reading that story and reading all these things and talking about this topic is bringing a lot of hope and so much. I feel so much better. I feel so much better. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so this is just a short story within this book, a short excerpt. I don't know. We haven't been getting any comments from Reddit. Are you all still there? Sometimes the app, it freezes up. Let's see if it'll let me put a comment through. I mean, yeah, it's most definitely frozen. All right, well, let me put that comment there. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check out that book. Sounds really excellent. I mean, I loved his writing so far. It was crazy. He's a magician. You know, I think that attests to the level of spirituality that's involved in magic. The metaphysics involved in magic. I really like this background. I'm definitely going to keep this. I'm going to keep this on the roll. It feels really refreshing. I feel like I'm breathing better. So, if breath is our connection, is the powering of our soul. If breath is the powering of our soul, then disease that affects our lungs and affects our breath, such as the one that we're currently dealing with in this pandemic, is a disease that threatens our soul, right? Like if you're on a respirator, where's your mindfulness? How can you practice mindfulness if you're not even breathing for yourself? I'm gonna see if anybody's ever written about this. I'm just gonna do Right? Don, have you ever thought about that? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, right? It's like if breath is such an important part of mindfulness and of our souls expressing themselves and contributing to the world's soul energy, if you're not breathing for yourself, or if you're challenged in your breathing, like me, I'm challenged in my breathing. I have something with my, no doctor has ever been able to figure it out. I have an issue, of course, with my sinuses, allergies, that happens, but that's not the issue, actually. The issue is that at one point, that one is like completely not working. This nostril is completely not working. You can hear it. It sounds as if my nose is completely plugged, but then this one is working. See, so like now you can tell, but even it's a little bit clogged, but that's the allergies because of the season changing. But like year round, I always am having this issue. So, I don't struggle to breathe, right? I have other methods of breathing and can keep things going, but mouth breathing, right? But then that affects my efficacy. I feel like my breathing is not as good as it could be if I had a properly working nose. You hear that? It's like it's struggling. One side of it is definitely working harder than the other side. Could that be affecting my expression of my soul? According to this thought, then yeah, for sure. But I mean, this is nothing compared to somebody that's on a respirator. ICU nurse prescribes mindfulness to help COVID-19 survivors cope. Let's read this article. John Shepard ran into a colleague dressed head to toe in personal protective equipment. He was about to enter the room with the COVID patient and looked nervous. Shepard asked him how he was doing. He said, "John, I'm a nurse and my wife's a nurse. We have 3 small children. We're just waiting to find out which one of us is going to bring this home." That moment has stayed with Shepard, who, as a hospital's mindfulness program manager, has strived to help reduce the psychological effects of the crisis on the hospital's workers and patients. He has introduced mindfulness techniques and meditation to providers and staff and led popular yoga and scrubs. Okay, so this is about dealing with work as a frontline worker. You know what I should do? I feel compelled to reach out to my mentor, Pono Shim, who, helped with that first article, the Hawaiian indigenous knowledge around breath. I should hit him up and ask him this question. Because, this article is saying that patients that have dealt with some type of respiratory challenges are more at risk for future issues. It says, after any severe case of pneumonia, a combination of an underlying chronic diseases and prolonged inflammation, seem to increase the risk of future illnesses, including heart attack, stroke, and kidney disease. People hospitalized for pneumonia have a risk of heart disease about 4 times as high as that of an age-matching controls on the year after their release, and about 1.5 times as high in each of them for the next 9 years. So they're saying that this article is talking about like the long-term effects of COVID-19. Reported 67% of reported COVID-19 patients from England, Wales, and Northern Ireland received advanced respiratory support died. A study in a smaller patient group in China found that only 14% survived after going on a ventilator. Those who survive a long period on a ventilator are prone to muscle atrophy and weakness. Keeping a critically ill patient moving, raising their arms and legs, and eventually helping them sit up, stand, and walk can reduce that weakness and get them off of the ventilator faster. But because COVID-19 is so infectious, bringing rehab specialists into patients' rooms can be a challenge. Another risk of hospitalized patients is delirium, a state of confused thinking that can lead to long-term cognitive impairments such as memory deficits. What we're finding in COVID is that there's a ton of delirium, says E. Wesley Eli, a pulmonologist and critical care physician at Vanderbilt University, whose team is preparing to publish those findings. The virus itself is partly to blame, Eli says. He suspects this coronavirus, like the ones that cause severe acute respiratory syndrome and Middle East respiratory syndrome, can directly infiltrate and damage the brain. And body-wide inflammation caused by the virus can also limit blood flow to the brain and kill brain cells. Making matters worse, doctors commonly prescribe sedative drugs to suppress violent coughing and help patients tolerate the distress and discomfort of a breathing tube. But these drugs can increase the risk of delirium, he says. And as hospitals run short of the most commonly used sedatives, they're turning to benzodiazepines, a class of drugs that can cause intense and prolonged delirium. I mean, what I just read is not linking anything between ventilators and your soul, but and mindfulness. But, you know, applying this kind of high-level indigenous thinking towards that science, you know, could get you to that kind of conclusion. Fascinating. Don says, the lack of soul or breath has long-term effects. If death is the return of the breath to the matrix, then lack of breath would cause damage, I would conclude, right? That's what I'm thinking, Don. I did a very quick Google search. I did not do a Google scholarship search because I'm pretty sure that this idea would not be written in any kind of peer-reviewed academic journals, but I did search on Google just through blogs and different articles, and I haven't seen anybody making that connection, but it's a powerful connection to be made. the breath, if death is the return of breath to the matrix, then lack of breath would cause damage. Yep. That makes sense. So cherish each breath. It's important. Not only for getting oxygen to your blood and to your brain, but for your soul, for your mindfulness, for your, for your road to your best life. Everybody's road's unique. So I can't tell you what that road will be for you. I really can't. But we can look at these concepts and use them to find our own road. Breathe well, rest well, practice mindfulness. Which, your breath is the fastest and easiest way for mindfulness. I mean, if you've ever practiced yoga or meditation, gone to like a guided meditation, that's always like the instructor is constantly reminding you to breathe. It's pretty funny. Like when you're in the middle of like some really distressed, like stretching, trying to get the pose right, and the instructor is just like, breathe, don't forget to breathe. And it's like, I'm not forgetting to breathe. I've been in that situation before. That's funny. I'm not forgetting to breathe. Don't worry. I love to breathe. I'm breathing. I don't like sweating and stretching and being uncomfortable. But it's interesting, like when you do really focus on the breath, like when you develop some comfortability and experience in doing those things, and then you're spending more time focusing on your breath versus having your fears or your insecurities about your discomfort, then all the things become far easier. Yeah, Dawn. So that's essentially the question that I had. So Dawn asked, not being able to breathe is akin to struggling to bring soul into the body. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's it. And so if you're on a ventilator, I don't know. I'm gonna check again. I'm just like, I'm so intrigued by this. No soul, no life. But then again, when the soul is leaving this physical body form, is re-entering into that matrix of the sila, it then becomes, and it's always constantly becoming that. So it's like, it's almost as if with every exhale, we experience a little bit of death. Could that be interpreted too? And with every exhale, we are affecting that overall soul energy, world soul energy. Yeah, I'm still not finding anything. I'm still looking. What to expect when someone you love is on a ventilator. When a person cannot breathe on their own or maintain an open airway, they may require intubation and the use of ventilator. Intubation is the process of inserting a breathing tube through the mouth and into the airway. A ventilator, also known as a respirator or breathing machine, is a medical device that provides oxygen through the breathing tube. All right, so although ventilators can be life-saving, they also carry some risk and side effects. Infections such as pneumonia and sinus infections, muscular weakness, collapsing lung, vocal cord damage. If you have a loved one on a ventilator, he or she may have difficulty with normal activities like talking, eating, or moving. Depending on the severity of your loved one's condition, he or she may be conscious or unconscious. The length of time on a ventilator also depends on the severity of your loved one's condition. Some patients can be taken off ventilators within hours, particularly if it's used for surgery. Others can stay on ventilators for days, months, or even years. Being on a ventilator can be a difficult experience, especially if patients are conscious. If your loved one is on a ventilator, try to be there to help. Limited community. Your loved one may feel frustrated or anxious because he or she can't talk. The ventilator brings oxygen into the lungs and helps get rid of carbon dioxide. Some people become dependent on a ventilator because of their medical problems. This may be difficult to get the person off the ventilator. When your loved one's medical problems have improved, weaning will begin. Weaning, also known as weaning trial or spontaneous breathing trial, is a process of getting the person off the ventilator. These trials are done daily to see if the person is ready to come off the ventilator. If these trials go well, we will remove the breathing tube from their throat. When a person comes off the ventilator because they can breathe on their own, they have achieved ventilator liberation. Shouldn't it be soul liberation? Patients with tracheostomy. So while many people can return to normalcy after being on a ventilator, other people may experience side effects. Post-intensive care syndrome refers to physical or mental complications that someone may go through after being on a ventilator. Muscle weakness, cognitive problems, depression, insomnia, and PTSD. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole, but hey, that's what we're here for. Rabbit holes are fine. So Don says, and if it's about chi or life force that you have stored that can allow someone to live longer without access to soul. So you're talking about like being on a ventilator. It is rabbit hole. Yeah, and then we start getting into philosophy and psychology. So it's easy to understand why someone spiritually could oppose to being held on life support. You know, a lot of people oppose that. They say to their children or to their significant other, hey, I don't want to be on life support. If I ever get to that point where I need to be on life support, just pull the plug. And some people say that's a selfish perspective. But if we think about it from this perspective, it's a really powerful argument. It's like the soul is not there. That mindfulness is not there. Fascinating. Fascinating. I'm really excited about bringing this into my regular cycle of conversations with friends and family. because this is definitely something that all can relate on. You know, sometimes when you try to talk about spirituality with somebody, it can often be very polarizing because the spirituality can be siloed so much. It's like, oh, I believe in these things, and so, you know, I can only talk about things from these perspectives compared to someone else. But if we're talking about breath, we all do it. We all do it the same way. And through what we've read today, we can see that even though different perspectives and cultures have interpreted our breath in a different way, it's all kind of the same. It's equated to our soul's energy. So this could be a really great way to talk about spirituality and talk about these like really high level thoughts with all types of people. We talk about breath. It is a cool topic. I'm grateful. You know, every week I come on and I don't really come with a certain agenda other than wanting to learn something, right? So yeah, now I'm going to appreciate my breathing so much more now. I'm going to appreciate those runs so much more now. I know I'm just going to be catching myself at random times thinking about my breath, which is going to be great. Gonna be great. What's your favorite tea? Yeah, my favorite tea is shaded green teas from Japan. So matcha is part of that. Gyokuro specifically. Although I don't sell any gyokuro. I used to when I first launched, you know, since that was the tea that had me the most excited. But it's just priced out of the market here. There's not a market, especially for real gyokuro. A lot of what's sold as gyokuro here is more than likely kabuse, which is still good. It's not as good as gyokuro. And so, yeah, I have good friends with a family in Fukuoka, near Yame, in the countryside there, that are like a very high elevation mountain village, and they're making very good gyokuro, but it's just priced way too high from the market here. And also, it's not organic. It's interesting, like those high-end, high umami, high, you know, theanine teas have been just the Kaizen culture in Japan has really encouraged the use of chemicals, specifically fertilizers. That's the main one, to like super jack the tea with more power, more umami. And so the highest quality teas in Japan, the highest value teas, are often not organic. Organic teas, not organic practice. Organic practice is highly regarded in Japan, of course. They would like the organic practices. But the tea that are made from organic tea farms are not as highly valued because they're not having as strong of a flavor. So it's really hard to find like a very good organic gyokuro. But the matcha, like the matcha that I sent you, Don, I really like that one. That's a nice one. It's really nice. And it's organic. So even though you're eating all the tea leaf, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and jump back into that article. There's still more left, so, you know, I'm just going to keep reading until I get kicked off, I guess. Yeah, you should really enjoy it. Such an elegant conception, if taken seriously, opens a range of previously unsuspected insights into the contemporary climate predicament. Yet this predicament, at once strangely new and startlingly old, is hardly unique to the indigenous traditions of the far north. After a long summer spent teaching and learning on the northwest coast of North America, I have just this week returned to my home in the southwest desert, reacquainting myself with the sunset hues of sandstone and the scents of juniper and sage. Here in this land, there flourish an array of native cultures, speaking languages from at least 5 unrelated language families, each of which practices its own intensely respectful relation to the unseen atmosphere. Among the Diné, or Navajo people, the encompassing and fluid power that grants all beings life, movement, and awareness is called Nilchi, the holy wind. Nilchi, so here's another culture. Nilchi is the whole body of the air or atmosphere, including those parts of the air in motion and those at rest. It is the medium through which all beings, mountains, coyotes, cottonwood trees, owls, communicate with one another. The sacred nature of the holy wind resides not merely in our thorough dependence upon it, but in its subtlety and invisibility. We witness it only by means of the visual things that it animates. There exist innumerable local winds, breezes, storms, gusts, and whiffs that stirs within the broad body of the holy wind, including the winds that dwell and circulate within each of us. The individual wind within one was long misunderstood by anthropologists who assumed that it referred to an autonomous spirit or soul, akin to the personal soul of Christian belief. These interpreters failed to recognize that for the Navajo, the wind within one was continuous with the enveloping wind at large, that the wind circulating within each person was informed by the wider wind that sweeps the desert grasses. Similarly, the 2 little winds called wind's children that linger in the spiraling folds of a person's ears, often whispering worded insights to her as she goes about her days, these as well are just a part of the expansive body of holy wind. For the Navajo, in other words, the very thoughts that we hear churning within our heads are spoken by small whirlwinds, or eddies, within the vast transparence of Nilchi, the fluid wind mind of the world. Within this rich cosmology, the different qualities of the various gusts, gales, whirlwinds, cross currents, blasts, and breezes that roll across the desert are recognized in the diverse names by which they are invoked. Dawn man, sky blue woman, twilight man, dark wind, wind's child, revolving wind, glossy wind, rolling darkness wind, and many others. The Navajo distinguish unpredictable winds and steady winds, harmful winds and helpful winds. Each person must navigate among these invisible influences with great care, striving to bring her life into Hozo, a dynamic balance with these immersive powers. Wow, so cool. Nor are humans purely passive with respect to the holy wind. Like the mountains in the 4 directions, like the plants and the other animals, human persons are one of the wind's dwelling places, one of its many centers. Just as we are nourished and influenced by the air at large, so our thoughts and our actions affect the air in turn. Human intentions can most effectively alter the world around us through the power of spoken utterance, through oral prayer and chanted song, which resonate and transform the very texture of the surrounding winds. Hence, among the Navajo, abundant energy and artistry are given to ceremonies like the Blessing Way, wherein persons invoke and project Hanto into the enveloping atmosphere through a ritual cycle of songs. At the conclusion of any such ceremony, the participants breathe the renewed hongzo back into their lungs, making themselves a part of the harmony, order, and beauty that they have just established in the ambient medium through the power of the chant. The relation between the Navajo people and the animate cosmos that enfolds and includes them is participatory and reciprocal. They are not just passive recipients of wind's influence, but instead are both passive and active, inhaling and exhaling, receiving the nourishment of the myriad beings and actively nourishing them in turn. Meanwhile, among the many Pueblo cultures, including the Hopi, the Zuni, and the various Pueblo villages of northern New Mexico, another emphasis predominates: the preciousness of life-giving rain within this high desert realm. Whenever a person from the Pueblo dies, her vapor essence is felt to journey across the land to the dwelling place of the Kachinas, the spirit ancestors. The Kachinas are regularly fed by the respectful actions of those who are alive, and by the seasonal ceremonies, the resplendent dances and prayers offering undertaken through the yearly cycle by the villagers. The spirit ancestors, feeling thus honored, return to their respective pueblos whenever they choose. They gather and thicken within the sky's transparence, materializing as clouds carrying, embodying forth the rain essence for the corn and the other crops upon which the people depend. In the Pueblo cosmologies, death brings into the existence the ancestors, who return as rain-bearing clouds, fertilizing the soil with water. The moisture feeds the corn that in turn nourishes the living. Human life and human death are here an integral part of the hydrological cycle. As the people depend on the climate, so, reciprocally, the climate depends on the people for its continued flourishing. I shudder to speak of matters held so sacred to those oral traditions, and even more so to write of these understandings, which were never meant to be written down. Much as I tremble to speak aloud the most sacred name of the holy in our own tribal Jewish tradition, the four-letter name that, rightly spoken, is not other than the inhale and the exhale, the living breath of awareness. And so I ask the blessing of my ancestors, filling them in the unseen ruah, Hebrew for the divine world of rushing spirits that surrounds me. Here, as I write, I bow to the various people indigenous to this region where I dwell, as well as to the animals, plants, and spirits of this parched terrain, asking their permission that I may write here of these things, because these storied knowings of which I comprehend so little nonetheless need to be heard once again, and what is common among them needs to be felt, acknowledged, and replenished if life is to flourish. Yes. So well put. I mean, geez. This person sounds perfect. I'm wondering where he stays in New Mexico. Oh, that's interesting. So he coined, in that book that you recommended, he coined a term called the more than human world, which is referring to the earthly world. The term was gradually adopted by other scholars, theorists, and activists, and has become a key phrase within the ecological movement. And now he's kind of converted that term to the Commonwealth of Breath, which is this excerpt that we've been reading tonight. He's the first contemporary philosopher to advocate a reappraisal of animism as a complexly nuanced and uniquely viable worldview which roots human cognition in the sensitive and sentient human body, while affirming the ongoing entanglement of our bodily experience with the uncanny sentience of other animals. He looks familiar too. He studied indigenous people of Indonesia, Nepal, and the Americas. So his current work, he helped founded a nonprofit called the Alliance for Wild Ethics. It's a consortium of individuals and organizations working to ease the spreading devastation of the animate earth through a rapid transformation of culture. We employ the arts, often in tandem with the natural sciences, to provoke deeply felt shifts in the human experience of nature, motivated by a love for the more than human collective of life, and for human life as an integral part of that wider collective. We work to revitalize local face-to-face community and to integrate our communities perceptually, practically, and imaginatively into the earthly bioregions that surround and support them. Yeah, I mean, it seems that he's probably just outside of Albuquerque. I want to meet him. Oh, they're near Santa Fe. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Next time I pass through, I'm gonna make an active attempt to stop and meet him. Maybe we could live stream together. That'd be so cool. That'd be so cool to like have him as a guest, and we could ask him questions. We could ask him questions about the ventilator and the soul. Yeah, that's incredible. What a special gift that we had tonight. I was not expecting that. Oh, Big Mike, come dance with me, boy. Come on. You're ordering his other books, awesome. Yeah, Don, I think that'll be good for you, you know? Don't forget to breathe, boy. Breathe. Share your life soul with the world. Baby boy. You're such a precious baby boy. Good boy. He's a good dancing boy. Good dancing dog. Great remix, Sojourner. Good job. All music today, provided by our good friend Sojourner. Oh man. I think that's it. Oh, you have friends in common, cool. Yeah, maybe Dawn. Maybe when I go to Santa Fe, you can go as well, and we can go have a gathering together and ask him all of these deep questions. So cool. Well, I am going to. I'm going to take us on a raid to go visit. I never take us on a raid to go visit gamers. But there's a good friend of ours that hangs out in the stream often who is gaming. And I think we should go raid them, give them some tea love. They know who we are. They know what goes on here. So they'll be happy to see us. They're playing Apex Legends. Again, I don't do any gaming, but let's go and give them a follow too. It looks like they're trying to get some followers. They're trying to reach a follower goal. So let's help them get a couple of extra followers, and we'll have some fun over there. We can share some tea puns, all the good stuff. Yeah, it's been a great night. Thank you so much, Don. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for engaging with the conversation. It really did help. It really did help. And Reddit, I'll see you next week. I'll see you next Friday. Yeah. Have a good night. Go get. Their name is Jessie. I'm not sure about anything outside of that. Just their name is Jessie, but they do spend a lot of time with us. But yeah, Don, I'll see you next time. I'll be back on Monday. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Rest well, drink lots of water, enjoy your time, stay healthy, and don't forget to breathe. Much love.